Hi friends, it's the last week of 2025 and it's going to be my last video for this year. What started out last year as a passion project and as an extension of my offline world into arts and painting. And now it's a small but a growing community of like-minded people. I thank each and every one of you if you've subscribed to my channel and if you're engaged with my content, whether it's the YouTube shorts or the long form videos. In this video, I'm going to capture my favorite watercolor art supplies of 2025. They range from the watercolor papers that I've tried and loved, the watercolor paints that I use most often, and some new ones that I included just recently. Some watercolor books, their authors, and how I find inspiration when flipping through their pages. Also, some knickknacks in ceramic tools that I love having around when I'm painting with watercolors. So, without much ado, let's get started.
With watercolors, the quality of paper is as important as the paint itself. In this section, I share some of my favorite watercolor papers, some that I've used for a long time and some relatively new. The first is Menorah. I've used this brand since the day I started watercolors, which is a few years back. These are one-sided glued pads that come in various sizes like A3, A4, A5, square, bookmark style, and I've used most of them at some point or the other and even reordered. I find the quality to be really good. These are 300 GSM cold pressed 100% cotton, dual textured archival quality paper with a natural white shade. The paper does feel precious, but it is still mid-range and affordable. I tend to use these a lot, whether for academic purposes or some watercolor studies. I have in fact created the entire Fleeting Florals bookmarks and greeting cards collection also using this paper. I have to say, Menorah has been one of my trusted watercolor papers of all time, super versatile and good quality. I purchased these from Amazon.in and I'll put a link in the description below in case you want to know more. The next one is one of the finest watercolor papers I've ever used. Fabriano Artistico watercolor block. It is slightly bigger than an A4 and is 9 inches by 12 inches in dimension. It is 300 GSM cold pressed 100% cotton, traditional white paper block. It is on the costlier side, but the joy of working with watercolors on this paper is difficult to describe in words. Thick, luxurious paper that can handle multiple washes and corrections without breaking down. This paper being precious, I use up smaller strips too with some doodles or art when I have to cut out artworks of certain dimension. I let the artworks dry completely before detaching the page from the block. That way I notice minimal buckling too. The next is again a Fabriano watercolor block. This is 25% cotton, 300 GSM cold pressed paper and is 7 inches by 9.5 inches in dimension. Cheaper than the Artistico range when compared like for like sizes, but is good quality and can even handle thick medium like gouache well. Over time, I've realized I like using watercolor blocks more than individual sheets. I haven't ever stretched watercolor paper, and so using a block that is glued on all 4 sides helps keep the paper stretched while I paint, and hence minimal buckling or warping. The next are my everyday watercolor loose A4 sheets from Canson and Factor Notes. They are 300 GSM cold pressed watercolor paper. The Canson sheets are lightly textured while Factor Notes has a distinguishable and a more prominent texture. These are very affordable and I have nowadays switched to using these extensively for swatching and small exercises. On the same lines as factor notes, I find the Brustro Cold Press 300 GSM Watercolour Viro bound pad very affordable and distinctly textured. It's great for everyday art practice and swatching. Each sheet has a thin perforation line to tear off the page if needed. I have used Neocolor 2, the water-soluble wax crayons, on this paper and quite liked the texture effect it creates. I have a few honorary mentions too. I recently bought the Canson XL A3 size textured paper, which is supposed to be good for watercolors and mixed media. I bought this from a local, well-stocked art store in Goa called Artorium in Panjim. I have only started to use it recently and I'm yet to finish this composition. But till now, the experience has been good in terms of being able to handle watercolors and layer some Neocolor 2 on top. If you've ever used Canson XL for mixed media, let me know in the comments what your experience has been. This A5 watercolor pad from Grabby has again been a very trusted companion and I love using it. The pages are 300 GSM, cold pressed, 100% cotton, and I've used liner ink, watercolor, gouache, Neocolor 2 on it too. And this last one is Hannah Mulet's beige toned hardbound watercolor book. This is 200 GSM, A6 landscape with 30 sheets or 60 sides and is one of the most expensive. I do love its quality of smooth toned paper, the rounded corners and overall the quality of the book. I have used it sparingly with watercolors and gouache. But I need to up my courage and use it more. I hope to carry this outdoors more often to paint plein air. Coming to watercolors now. These two palettes contain all the watercolors that I use on a regular basis. The larger tin box is from Meeden and can store 48 half pans, and the smaller one is from Brustro and can store 24 half pans. I have filled the pans myself from tubes or watercolor paints. The first palette is quite an extended primary palette and some greens and browns. When I was starting out on the journey of moving from pre-filled watercolor sets to a more limited set of watercolors and mixing my secondaries and tertiaries, I experimented a lot with cool to warm shades of primary yellows, reds and blues. Many of you would have seen the first two videos of my channel from 2024. Since then, I've maintained and used this palette heavily for a lot of my watercolor artworks. I added some convenience greens and browns as I paint a lot of potted plants, nature and landscape. The bottom two rows are just duplicates of the colors above in the first two rows. Most of these watercolor tubes are Holbein's watercolors 15 ml each and are artist grade high quality pigments. The tubes carry information like light fastness, transparency, granulation and pigment names. This next palette is a more recent addition and I'm so excited about it. I have allowed myself to experiment with a few different brands and unique colors. I recently purchased 3 colors from Mijello Mission, 15 ml tubes and 8 Daler-Rowney watercolors of 8 ml each. I have already filled in the half pans into this palette in the bottom row. The row on top contains the White Nights full pans and you can watch my previous video on the 2 granulating colors. Now let's swatch some of these Mijello Mission and Daler-Rowney watercolors. I will first dot out the colors and then give a brief description as I swatch them. The first Magellan Mission color is Naples Yellow, and I added it to my collection to include a soft, pastely, semi-opaque yellow. It is made of pigment yellow 154, also called imidazole or azo yellow, pigment yellow 65, and pigment white 6 or titanium white. It is a 4 out of 5 star in light fastness, is semi-transparent and semi-staining. The next color is Autumn Red, and it is simply one of the most beautiful warm reds I have tried. It is made of pigment yellow 150, also called nickel azo yellow, and pigment red 254 or pyrrole red. It is a 5 on 5 in light fastness, is transparent, and a staining color. I am using a number 6 King Art Original Gold round petal brush for swatching. And the last Mission watercolor is called Grey of Grey and is a lovely bluish grey. It is made of pigment black 7 or carbon black, pigment white 6, and pigment blue 60, also called Indian Throne blue. It is a 5 on 5 in light fastness, is opaque, and is a semi-staining color. The price of these Magellan Mission 15 ml watercolor tubes is almost half of Holbein's, and I feel that's such great value for money without compromising on quality. I love these three colors as a mini palette itself, and when mixed in varying degrees, they form these beautiful muted analogous tones. The next are Daler Rowney's Aquafine 8 ml watercolor tubes. These are even cheaper, and the small filled tubes make them a great prospect to try different colors without breaking bank. The first is yellow ochre, and the pigment is P/42 and is semi-transparent. All the colors you will see here are rated 3 out of 4 in light fastness as per the brand. The next is olive green, made up of PG36 and pigment orange 36. I love the convenience of natural greens that I'm slowly adding to my collection. Next is Prussian blue, which is PB27. And this appears to be much more tinting than the White Knight's Prussian blue. As does the yellow ochre. The next is Payne's Grey and has pigment black 7 and PB29 or ultramarine blue. It is a rich opaque color, and I have to lift off some pigment to see the beautiful dark undertone. The next 4 colors are purple magentas and are all transparent. This first one is called Ultramarine Pink, and I'll be honest, I had never heard of a color with this name. It is a single pigment, pigment red 259, and it is a synthetic pigment that has soft, granular rose pink color with violet undertones. I was truly mystified by this. The next is Permanent Mauve or Pigment Violet 23, which is a classic dioxazine violet. It's intense bluish purple color with strong tinting strength. Is Quinacridone Magenta or PR122. This pretty pink is Permanent Rose or PV19 or Quinacridone Violet. That, my friends, is a wrap on all the watercolors I'm currently using, some old and some recent additions. It'll be interesting to create in a subsequent video curated palettes of say 6 to 7 colors each from all these colors for doing potted florals and landscapes. Something for me to think about. Maybe a palette of 6 to 7 colors each for summer landscapes or winter landscapes or monsoon or autumn landscapes. The challenge will be to use just these colors that I have now, and of course there'll be duplication of a few colors in each palette, but there will be a few dominant colors that will stand out in each seasonal palette. I have to mention Kuratake's Gansai Tambi watercolors in the Art Nouveau set of 24. And the generous full pans, although shallow, make for large brushes to pick up paint easily. These soft pastel colors and a texture where watercolor meets gouache makes this such a unique set. And now on to some books that I've purchased on watercolors. This tiny pocket watercolor guide by the famous artist Hazel Sohan encourages one to pick up the brush often for a 10-minute watercolor exercise. And it's surprising how much can actually be achieved in those 10 minutes. Seemingly complex subjects are broken down into easy guidelines with terse but effective instructions. I love this little book. The next is Color Choices by Stephen Quiller, and in my view is a medium agnostic text. It encourages one to develop their own sense of color theory by first decoding it and then applying it practically to any medium you use. Like monochromatic, complementary, split complementary, analogous and triadic schemes with wonderful examples and exercises one feels encouraged to do. There are some useful Quiller color wheels too, with pigment details for oil, watercolor and acrylic medium. There are generous references from the author's own work and collection, as well as other master colorists and artists. And this book, called The Encyclopedia of Watercolor Techniques by Hazel Harrison, covers a lot of the practical aspects of watercolors and its paraphernalia, like essential tools, techniques of watercoloring, picture making, painting themes, simple versus complex compositions, and more. Books by watercolor artists preserve hard-earned knowledge and turns decades of their knowledge and practice into guidance we can learn from. Let me know in the comments if there are some books that inspire you too when it comes to art and painting. And finally, friends, just some essential ceramic tools that I cannot go without when watercoloring. This one even has these square spaces in the back as an additional template for mixing. These bowls to store water in while painting were picked up from a local fair and are actually dining table items. And this little chopstick rest that I now use as a brush rest.
Friends, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. As we come down to the last days of 2025, I wish you and your loved ones a happy, healthy, and a prosperous new year. I'll see you in 2026. Until then, keep that passion alive and happy painting.